Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I've got a special treat for you. I'm sharing my keynote presentation from the conference I went to in Bali. I was lucky enough to be invited to speak at the SEOcon Forum conference in Bali a few weeks ago. Shout out to my buddy Eli Schwartz for the intro to their team. I was the closing keynote for the event, but stuck around for another week to experience Bali. I'm obviously recording this before I left for the trip, but if things went according to plan, I'm sharing some awesome photos in the background right now. But you're not here for my vacation photos, you're here to learn some awesome SEO tips. So let's get right to the presentation. Well, this is how to be a local SEO superhero. You know who I am because you're watching me on my video series. But for those of you that are joining for the first time, I'm Greg. I'm the Vice President of Search here at SearchLab, and you're watching my weekly video series. Definitely check back every Tuesday to catch more episodes if you're a new viewer or listener. And this is my presentation from Bali. I am lucky enough to be a popular presenter at conferences all over the world. So I see lots of different conference presentations. And, you know, sometimes while people may have some great info to share, they're not that engaging to watch in person because the background of their slide is just plain white and they pack every slide with black Arial font and lots of bullet points. And they just sit and read bullet points the entire time. And that's not very fun for anyone. And it's a scientifically proven fact that bullet points kill kittens. So today we're going to keep all the kitties safe. And you saw the Spidey reference there at the beginning. I'm a movie nut. Most of you have probably seen this before and know that I love movies and love to share my love of movies every time I do a presentation. So there's always a theme to the movies. Today's theme is superhero movies. We've got at least one superhero movie for every year in the last 50 years with a total of 99 references in the presentation today. So over to the side, there is a little bit of attribution in case you're curious about what the movies are, especially on the older ones. So not only will you learn some awesome stuff about SEO, you'll have some cool movies to watch later. So why the long face? Are you spending too much time looking up at competitors that rank higher in local search results? You don't actually need a big brain to succeed, even though sometimes SEO seems like a lot of magic or voodoo. I got a lot of really hot tips to share with you guys today so that you'll be able to crush your competition and kick ass in search results. In today's world, SEO is literally your most important marketing channel because COVID fundamentally changed the way that people shop. Your customers will start every sale funnel, every sale process with a search online. I like to boil things down to simple concepts so it's easier to retain the really important points. And the most important thing that I can boil down for you is that if you really look at Google at a simple level, it's just pattern detection. So when you're doing SEO to your website, you're just trying to give your site a better pattern so that Google sees it as a better site and it shows it more favorably in search results. But most people don't realize it's not just a single algorithm at play. Google uses multiple algorithms to return search results. So when somebody types something in, Google's going to assess the intent of what that person is looking for and use the correct algorithm based on the intent of that particular search query. So if you're a business that does face-to-face business with customers at a physical brick and mortar location, or if you serve customers face-to-face in a particular area, but at their location, like a plumber or an electrician, then you actually need local SEO, which is the strategy of targeting Google's local algorithm. But most businesses that need local SEO have never even heard of local SEO. Google's local algorithm works differently and considers additional signals that the traditional algorithm doesn't pay attention to. Another important thing to realize is that most of the time when people are searching, they're searching on mobile devices. And any search results on a mobile device are inherently localized. Now, in the United States, everybody's been doing local SEO for quite a bit, but outside the US, a few simple tactics can make a really massive difference because nobody else is doing local SEO. If you need help understanding how local SEO works, I like to use pizza delivery as an example. So if you're sitting at the office at your brick and mortar location and you search 2 words in Google, pizza delivery, then you get a list of all the pizza spots that are near your current location. if you were to try that same search at home with the same two words, you'd get totally different search results. Even though you didn't specify that you wanted different results by using a neighborhood or a city or even a phrase like near me or nearby, Google still changed the search results based on your physical location when you did the search. That's how local SEO works. And then you can do some simple math to explain why you need local SEO. Because typically there's at least 15 to 20 competitors in a market, but there's only really 13 spots on page one search results because you've got the 10 blue links plus the 3 in the map pack. But when you take out all the aggregate sites like TripAdvisor or AutoTrader, any of those type of aggregates, typically there's only 7 or 8 spots for actual businesses to show up in. So if there's 20 people fighting for page one and only 7 or 8 spots, that means 12 or 13 people don't make it to page one. And there's only 10 spots on page 2, which means a few people are going to be back on page 3 where no one's ever going to see them. But if you're in any sort of a competitive environment or larger metro area, you're going to have way more than 20 people fighting for those few valuable spots on page 1. And that's why SEO is so important. It's also important to understand where the search results are powered by that local algorithm. So whenever you do a search and you see the map pack, that is the clearest indication that the local algorithm is being used to return those search results. Now, the map used to be on top, but they moved the map over to the side late last year. And now at the bottom of the 3, you can click more locations, and that takes you to what we call the local finder page, which goes beyond the top 3 and shows you every local business that matches the intent of your search query. You can also go directly to Google Maps and do a search in Google Maps, also powered by the local algorithm. And then below the map pack, you've got the standard 10 blue links, except they're not standard because they're also localized. It's really important to pay attention to a study that happens every year called the Local Search Ranking Factors Study. Now, the idea behind this, if you were to take the 5 best SEOs in the world and give them all the same website to optimize, they would all optimize it differently, but there'd be a heck of a lot of overlap in the areas that they would touch, the elements that they know that Google's algorithm is looking at. So that's kind of the thought process behind the study. You take the top experts in local search and they send out a really big in-depth survey. Typically it's 35 to 40 worldwide experts. And then they aggregate the results of this survey to get a pretty good handle on the factors that really influence visibility and search results. And you get 2 pie charts. The first shows you the signals that influence your visibility in Google's map pack or in Google Maps. And then you get a second pie chart that shows you the factors that influence your visibility in the organic links below that map pack. Now, most businesses want to show up in the map pack because it's at the top of search result, takes up so much screen real estate, and is obviously a local business since it shows the map. Now, the second most important factor that influences your visibility in the map pack is that your physical address is actually in the city that's being searched. This is why sometimes if you're in the suburbs, it's really difficult to show up in searches for the main city in the metro, even though colloquially, everyone might refer to everyone else being in the same city because those suburbs actually have a different mailing address. But then the most important factor is proximity, how far away the search results are from the person that's doing the search. And remember from the pizza example, Google knows where you are when you're doing the search. So you can't really influence either of these factors. So for the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about the things that you can influence. But keep in mind, as I talk about all these different things, there is no silver bullet. SEO works because of the sum of all of the parts working together. You can't just pick 1 or 2 things. You have to do them all. So let's start with the content on your site and how that content is optimized. There's a lot more to SEO than just adding content, even though most of the time content marketing says, hey, all you have to do is add content, you're going to be great. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it besides just adding content. But most agencies have become pretty lazy and just equate adding a few pages of content a month to doing SEO, but there's no real plan behind it. Optimizing your content and technical elements on the site are also massively important beyond just adding content. And when it comes to adding content, Google doesn't care how much content you have. Google cares that the content that you have is a good answer to the question that the searcher is asking. Now, a lot of agencies will sell you on how many pages of content they give you a month, but if there's no real plan, they're just adding a bunch of junk that's not going to do anything for you. Again, boiling down to simple concepts. If you want to show up as a search result when somebody types a particular phrase into Google, then you need to pay to content on your website that's about that concept. And that page needs to be the best answer in the local area to the question that the searcher is asking. And if you're really writing the best answer to the question, you're going to answer the subsequent questions that potential customer would have once they receive the initial answer to their initial question that they typed into Google. You also need to make sure that your content is actually about your business, truly about your business and why you're awesome and why people should shop with you, and also truly about the local area. Because if you've got the same generic content as all of your competitors, why would anybody care? Nobody's going to remember you. You're not going to stand out from the crowd. And there's a really easy way to test this. If you take your homepage content and only change two things, change the city that you're located in every time that city appears, and change the name of your business every time that appears, could you take that homepage content and put it on another site on the other side of the country? Would it still work? If it still works, that means it's pretty generic. It's not really about you or about your location. Another way to test your content is to read it physically out loud, not just think through it, but read it out loud to another person. Everything that's on your site should sound conversational, like something that you would say face-to-face to a customer that just walked in your front door. When you read it out loud, you catch those things that your brain on the marketing side thinks keyword, keyword, keyword. This is great. But when you read it out loud, you realize that it doesn't sound conversational. Now, once you've got this awesome content, that's the best answer in the local area, that answers the subsequent questions, that's all about you and all about the local area, you then need to optimize the content so it's super easy for Google to understand what the content's about. So I'm going to run you through the page elements that you need to optimize on each of the pages. Now, as I mentioned, keyword phrase or city. Keep in mind, across each element on a single page, it needs to be the same keyword phrase and it needs to be the same city. So the most important, most weighted element on the page is the title tag. You should have your keyword phrase and city in your title tag. You shouldn't put your business name first because you're the only business named that, and you'll always rank number one if someone is searching for that particular phrase. So if you need the business name in there, throw it in at the end, but definitely not at the beginning. The second most important element on the page is your H1 heading. You should only have one. Can you have more than one? Sure. But really, you should only have one. It should be a bit more conversational. It should have the same keyword phrase and city phrase in there. Now, obviously, you need it in the page content, but if you've written the best answer in the local area that answers subsequent questions, it's all about you and all about the local area, you probably won't have to optimize too much here. All of the platforms out there allow you to set custom URLs for the interior pages of your site, so it's much better to include that keyword phrase and location phrase in the URL of those pages. You also need it in the alt text on your images. Now, years ago, Google couldn't tell what was in images, so alt text is a little descriptor in that image embed code that causes it to appear that describes what's in the image. But now machine learning allows Google to tell pretty much exactly what's in an image, but alt text is still part of the algorithm, and it's something that a lot of marketers don't do anything with, so it's a great way to add a little bit of an edge to your optimization efforts. And the meta description is also important. Now, the meta description doesn't influence anything in regards to ranking, but because it populates those couple of gray sentences underneath your blue link when you show as a search result in Google, it's really important to write something compelling in the meta description. Think of it like writing ad copy. You want to have that keyword and city in there for sure. You also need to have a blog, and you need to post on a regular basis. And the reason why you need a blog is because there's a huge difference between the kind of content that goes on the main pages of the site and the kind of content that goes on your blog. Main website content is bottom of funnel content. It's meant to show up and convert people. Blog content is more mid to early funnel content. It's more about discovery and informational type queries. It's not really something you should expect to get leads from. It's something that you're sharing information and guiding your potential customers down that sales path so that they will convert at a later date. And think of the blog like a billboard on the side of the highway. You don't put the billboard up expecting that everyone that sees the billboard is going to buy from you. It's there for brand awareness. So use your blog the same way. If everything on your site and your blog is about the product or service that you sell, you're only going to show up as a search result if somebody is looking for that solution. But if you share helpful, useful, interesting information on the blog, you're going to show up before people are looking to buy what you're selling, which means they've got eyeballs on you sooner and before they've got eyeballs on your competitors, which means it's more likely that they're going to convert with you. In fact, if you share helpful information about the local area and make your blog a local destination, you'll show up before people are looking to buy at all, which is even better, and it helps build more local relevancy. If you're not sure how to do this, I've got a video that walks through 10 different concepts that you can use as a springboard to create more awesome local content. So now let's talk about inbound links, which are links that point from other websites to your website, and they are heavily weighted in Google's algorithm. And because we're targeting the local algorithm, we want to get local links, which are links from local businesses and local websites. The cool thing is, if you get involved in the local community, it's really easy to get local links. So I'll walk you through a couple of concepts of things that you can do to get some really powerful local links. The first being sponsorships, little league teams, 5Ks, marathons, golf tournaments, anything like that. Google's not okay with you buying links, but it's totally okay to buy a sponsorship that results in a link. So these are a really great way to get some awesome local links. So keep an eye out for sponsorship opportunities. Local meetups are great as well. I like to use meetup.com, but you can use Facebook or a lot of other sites to find groups that have regular monthly meetings in the local area, and just look for groups that are looking for meeting sponsors. You throw in 50, 60 bucks a month to buy their snacks and their drinks, and you get some killer links out of it. Local blogs are awesome as well. Find any way you can to get local bloggers to write about you. Even if they say they got a free product or service to write about their experience, doesn't matter. You still get an awesome link. Talk to your staff about what they do in their free time. I'm not talking about what the business does as far as local organizations. I'm talking about what the staff does outside of work, especially if they're in the leadership group of any of these local clubs or organizations. It's going to be really easy to get a link back to your website. And you can use Google to do a lot of this work for you. Throw your city name in with some of the important keywords of concepts you'd like to go after, and Google's going to give you some awesome ideas of places that you can go to get some really killer local links. I'm also sharing our onboarding questionnaire with you. You can download it at the link right there. We send this questionnaire out to every new client that we work with to help prioritize possible link opportunities and to uncover some things that already exist from any initiatives that may have happened in the past before we started working with them. So it's a really great starting place. And if you haven't really done much with links before, you can give it to current clients and start working on links with it. So let's move on and talk a little bit about customer reviews, which are obviously important for the human element, but they're also really weighted in Google's local algorithm, and in fact have gained more weight for the past several years. The important bit is to be proactive. You've got to make it easy for people to leave a review, and you need to ask every single customer to leave a review. So what we like to do is set up a reviews page, typically at domain.com/reviews, with a simple thank you message that says something like, hey, thanks for doing business with us. Let us know how we did today. You can leave a review on one of the following sites, and then you give them options. A really important thing to think about, though, and remember, if a customer leaves a review and in the text of the review, they use one of the important keyword phrases you're trying to show up for, you'll potentially start to rank better in searches for those keywords. Now, keep in mind, this happening one time or two times isn't really going to move the needle. Maybe even 5 or 6 times won't matter. But over time, if people continually use those same phrases, it's going to help you show up better in searches for those phrases. But you can't tell people what to write because it's against Google's rules and could get you in a lot of trouble. But you can Jedi mind trick them. On that thank you page, if you leave a few simple questions and say something like, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details and tips. Here's some questions that might help. Now, I listed several here just to give you some examples, but really you want to stick to 2 or 3 questions, because then subliminally in their head, they're thinking about answering those questions when they write those reviews, and you'll see those phrases pop up over and over again. You want to make sure you respond to every single review. A lot of people only respond to the positives. A lot of other people only respond to the negatives, but you want to respond to every review that comes in. And remember, when you're responding to a bad review, that response isn't for the person that left the bad review. It's for every potential customer in the future who wants to see how you handled the situation. It's important to spread your reviews out among the different review platforms. It's not a natural pattern. Remember Google's pattern detection. It's not a natural pattern to have all of your reviews only on Google or only on Yelp or only on TripAdvisor. So spread them out, make it look more natural. And don't forget to concentrate on whichever site is feeding the reviews on Apple Maps, because if anyone looks for directions on an iPhone and they use Apple Maps, the stars that show up don't come from Google. They will come from another site. In the United States, that's Yelp. Outside of the United States, you need to do a search and see, and in this case, in Bali, looking at restaurants, the reviews come from TripAdvisor, which means if you're a restaurant in Bali, you need to be concentrating on TripAdvisor reviews because those are the ones that populate the search results on Apple Maps. But, if you're in the US, you want to concentrate on Yelp for that same reason. So let's finish up with Google Business Profiles, formerly known as Google My Business. This is one of the greatest rebrand fails ever. It's such a bad idea to change the name, but hey, you know what? We'll just keep calling it Google My Business for a few years anyway, I'm sure. But your Google Business Profile is your new homepage. It's the first impression that you make with potential customers when they search for you by name. They don't have to go to your website to get your phone number or to get your address for directions or to see pictures or to read testimonials or any of that stuff. Even frequently asked questions, they can see all of that in your Google Business Profile. It's also what allows you to show up in the map pack and in Google Maps results. Now, in Indonesia, Google's a little bit more strict, so it's a lot easier to get suspended. So you want to be careful with any changes that you make. If you do get suspended, keep in mind, support kind of sucks. So it's usually for any issues you've got with your Google Business Profile, it's a better idea to go to the community forum instead. So it's a community forum, not staffed by Google, but staffed by volunteers that will help you out with your issues. So if you go post on the forum with any issues you might have, one of the product experts will jump in and help you out, and you will get much faster and more efficient and just better quality help there than you would get through support. Make sure you use your actual business name. If you add keywords in, it can cause a suspension pretty quickly. You want to make sure you're choosing all of the relevant categories that match what you do. Now, don't pick something irrelevant, but you want to make sure you're choosing everything that matches what you do. There are 10 slots there, but there's no drop-down list to choose from. You just have to kind of know what they are. So I love this interactive list over at Plepper Tools. You can enter a single category, and it will then show you all the other categories that are most often selected along with the category that you entered. So it's a really helpful tool to use. I also like the Chrome plugin called GMB Spy, which allows you to see all of the categories that your competitors have chosen. Typically, you can only see whichever their primary category is. So this plugin lets you uncover everything that they've chosen. It's really awesome for competitive research. And be strategic with what you're choosing, because the first category that you pick, your primary category, is a little bit more weighted and helps you show up a little bit better. So you want to be strategic about what you're choosing there. Watch this video. It will explain a little bit more in detail what you can do to be more strategic. You want to make sure you upload a lot of high quality photos and continue to upload photos over time. You want to make sure that you have a local phone number listed. Now, you also want to be sure that you've got UTM tracking on the website link and actually on all the links, because attribution isn't really always correct in Google Analytics. If no referral data is passed along to Google Analytics, it gets classified as direct traffic. And guess what? A lot of mobile traffic doesn't pass referral data to Google Analytics due to privacy concerns. So if you add UTM tracking of something like this to the end of your URL, it forces it to be correctly attributed in Google Analytics. You also want to make sure you're using Google Posts, which are basically free ads that appear in your Google Business Profile in search results. I did a Whiteboard Friday episode last year for Moz that is jam-packed. It's about 15 minutes long of tons and tons of information on how to be successful with Google Posts. So definitely go watch that. It will be incredibly helpful for you. And the key to success is paying attention to what shows up in the thumbnail, because most people only pay attention to the full post, but the post has a cropped image and just a few lines of text that appear in the thumbnail. That's what actually shows in your Google Business Profile. And if that's not compelling, nobody's going to click on it. So make sure you pay attention to what shows in the thumbnail if you want to be successful. The problem, though, is image cropping is a little bit broken. It's inconsistent. It's not really intuitive. It crops slightly higher than vertical center, and it will crop the same image differently every time you upload it. Slightly differently, not massively differently. But for better control over what shows in that thumbnail image, we've created a Photoshop guide, which you can download at the link right here. When you download the Photoshop guide, anything that's within that white grid will be safe, and it will show in that thumbnail. And then the rest of the image will appear once they've clicked the thumbnail and they're viewing the full post. You also need to pay attention to the questions and answers section in your Google Business Profile. It allows anyone to ask you a question, and it allows any random person to answer that question for you. And that should terrify you. Customers think that it's chat or some sort of instant messaging and that somebody's on the other end waiting to answer, but it's actually a community discussion widget. Now, because of the fact that it is a community discussion widget, that means anybody can answer those questions, and questions can be answered multiple times. So whichever answer has the most thumbs up or the most upvotes is the one that's displayed as the primary answer. So it's really important to make sure that your answers stay upvoted as the primary answers. You can even ask your own questions. Load in your own common questions. And this is actually encouraged by Google. It's not against the rules like a lot of people think it might be. You want to set up a pre-site FAQ page because it's not very likely that people are going to go to your website and read through the 40 or 50 FAQs on your site to see if maybe the question that they have to ask is listed in your FAQs. But there's a really important element to this on the questions and answers section. As someone types an answer, as someone types a question, if a similar question has been asked and answered in the past, Google will automatically supply an answer to that question as the person types it in, which means it's a much better pre-site experience and makes it more likely that that person is going to convert. And you can check your questions and answers section for content ideas, because if people are asking questions, chances are they couldn't find that content on your site. Now, sure, sometimes they're just lazy and haven't been to your site yet, and maybe it's obvious, but a lot of times that content's either really hard to find on your site or it's not there at all. So check your questions for content ideas. Even better, check the questions that people are asking your competitors for content ideas, because if those customers have those questions to ask your competitors, they're going to ask the same questions to you. And if they get an automatic answer supplied as they're typing that question to you, they're probably going to call you over your competitor. So let's look at a couple of fun examples to finish things up here. We see this all the time, that even though the phone number is right there by the button that you have to click to ask a question, or that they could just go to your website to get your phone number. Again, they think it's chat and they'll ask, hey, what's your phone number? And in this case, it was a Nervi heating engine, and the dealership didn't even answer, so they didn't even get that business. Or you see a question like this that says, your website sucks. Somebody says, yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. And we all laugh at that, but you can actually get these removed. There are 3 little dots over to the right, and if you report the question for not being a question, you can get it removed because it has to be a question. Or this was a fun one. I was doing an event in Austin, Texas, and I pulled up a local example from a car dealership. And the question was, does this car dealership have a body shop? And the primary answer is, don't go here. Look at the reviews. I had a horrible experience. They lie to you and everybody else. But if you notice, there's 6 more answers. And when the business answers, it says owner in parentheses. And this is a much better answer. Now, this was just meant to be an example to show why it's important to keep your owner answers upvoted. But there was actually somebody in the room that worked at the dealership, and they came up to me afterwards and said, hey, I work at that dealership. And I said, oh my gosh, I wasn't trying to shame you or embarrass you. And they said, no problem there. But what do we do to fix it? And we just grabbed 3 people in the front row, had them log in to Google and go search for this dealership and go to this question and click thumbs up on the dealership answer. Because if you notice, the primary answer had 1 thumbs up and the dealership answer had no thumbs up. And immediately, once this got 3 thumbs up, it became the primary answer. So it happens really quickly. This was for a conference that I did in Boston in a really old hotel. So the halls were very twisty and not really making sense how the numbers were laid out. So obviously other people had the same issues I had, and someone asked, how are the room numbers ordered? And this guy says alphabetically, and we all laugh at that. But again, the hotel should be paying attention to this and have a better answer for the potential customers or customers that are confused by the numbering system. And this last one is my favorite example of all time. It has since been changed, but it's for the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel on the Thames River in downtown London. And the question is, do you have to wear a helmet? And the original answer was, you don't have to, but you can if you wish. I believe Viking helmets are a popular choice. Now, we all laugh at that, but this is a major tourist destination, and that's not the best first impression. So they should be paying more attention. So you should upload all of your common questions and answer your questions and monitor everything and make sure your answers are upvoted so that you have an awesome pre-site FAQ experience that looks like this. So if you use all of these tactics and layer in your own customized strategy, you will get awesome results. So use this all and go rock the local search results. Thanks so much for sitting through this absolute fire hose of information. Now, when you're looking at search results, you're not going to be down and depressed because you'll be able to use all of the hot tips that I share with you today to go from underdog to being super happy about what shows in search results. So that was how to be a local SEO superhero. There's my Twitter account if you want to follow me on Twitter, assuming Twitter doesn't die anytime soon. I do tweet a lot. It's kind of my social platform of choice, so you can follow me there. There's my email address. If you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer anything you ask. Or if you'd like a copy of these slides, if you're watching this video and you'd like to see the actual PowerPoint, I'm happy to send it to you. Just pop me an email. And as always, at the end, there is a list of all the movies by order of release date. Thanks so much for watching today. Thanks for sticking around to watch the whole thing. That's definitely all the time we've got left for today's episode, so you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.